Today, we're diving into a question that, honestly, keeps a lot of parents up at night. Could getting your child a perfect smile, with braces and all, actually make it harder for them to breathe? It really gets down to this. Can straightening teeth accidentally mess with your breathing? And it's a huge question, right? Because we're not talking about something minor. We're talking about the very air we breathe, especially when we're most vulnerable, during sleep. And to get why this is such a big deal, we have to talk about something called obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA. This is a really serious condition where your airway literally gets blocked or collapses while you sleep, causing you to stop breathing over and over again. It can lead to some major health problems down the road, which is exactly why any treatment that could shrink our airway gets put under the microscope. So where did this whole fear even come from? Well, the controversy really boils down to one very common orthodontic practice: pulling teeth to make room for braces. Okay, so the theory goes a little something like this. An orthodontist sees a crowded mouth. To make space, they decide to extract a couple of premolar teeth. This gives them the room they need to pull the front teeth back. And here's the scary part of the theory. That process supposedly pushes the tongue backward, which then crowds the back of the throat and constricts the airway. The worry is that this could set someone up for breathing problems like OSA. I mean, it sounds pretty logical, doesn't it? A simple cause and effect. But here's the million-dollar question. What does the science actually say about this? Is this a real, proven medical risk we should all be worried about? Or is it just a persistent myth? To get to the truth, we're not just looking at any old study. We're turning to a huge, very recent meta-analysis from the European Journal of Orthodontics. Now, a meta-analysis is the heavyweight champion of scientific evidence because it doesn't just look at one small group of people. It gathers up the data from lots of high-quality studies to find the real overall answer. And this was a pretty massive review. We're talking about data from 11 different clinical studies, covering a grand total of 891 patients. A number that big gives us a much clearer, much more reliable picture of what's actually going on. So, after crunching all those numbers, what did they find? Well, the conclusion was crystal clear, and I'm going to quote this directly. Premolar extractions during comprehensive orthodontic treatment have little to no effect on the volume and min CSA of the airways. That min CSA part just means the minimum cross-sectional area. In other words, the absolute narrowest point of the airway. The very spot we'd be most concerned about. But wait, it gets even more interesting. The study didn't just find that extractions don't cause harm. Get this. They found that on average, the airway size in the area right behind the mouth actually got a tiny bit bigger in the patients who had teeth pulled. This doesn't just poke a hole in the theory. It pretty much flips the whole thing on its head. Okay, so if pulling teeth isn't the big bad wolf we thought it was, where's the conversation headed now? Well, the entire field of orthodontics is making a huge pivot. It's moving away from just creating a beautiful smile and towards something much bigger, actively looking for and even improving airway health starting from a very young age. You see, orthodontists aren't just in their own little bubble anymore. They are becoming a crucial part of the frontline defense. Because they see kids so regularly and they take these incredibly detailed scans of the head and jaw, they're often the very first people to spot the anatomical red flags for breathing issues, and they work hand in hand with pediatricians and other specialists. The new game plan is all about identifying what are called craniofacial phenotypes. Now, that sounds super technical, I know, but all it really means is looking at the specific shape and growth pattern of a child's face and jaws. We now know that certain patterns, like a small or set-back lower jaw, are major risk factors for what's called sleep-disordered breathing, or SDB. And this new knowledge is a complete game changer. It lets us be way more proactive. Instead of just waiting for teeth to get crooked and then reacting, orthodontists can now step in early to help guide how a child's face grows, specifically to support a bigger, healthier airway for life. And here's a perfect breakdown of how this actually works. Let's say a kid has that specific phenotype of a narrow upper jaw. An orthodontist can use something called a rapid palatal expander. It gently widens the jaw and the floor of the nose, which can dramatically improve how well they can breathe through their nose. Or if a child has a small lower jaw that's set too far back, they can use what's called a functional appliance to encourage it to grow forward, which opens up that crucial airway space behind the tongue. And with all of this, timing is absolutely everything. The right tool has to be used at the right time. For example, if you want to bring the upper jaw forward, a A simple face mask works wonders on younger kids, maybe around age 6 to 9 when they're growing like crazy. But for older kids, you might need more advanced bone-anchored devices to get the same result. It's a super personalized strategy. So let's wrap our heads around all this. What's the biggest takeaway here? It's that we're really moving into a future of team-based care that looks at the whole child, not just their teeth, but their growth, their breathing, their sleep, the whole package. So let's recap the main points you really need to remember. First off, that old fear about pulling teeth for braces and shrinking the airway, the best science we have says it just doesn't hold up. Second, orthodontists are becoming airway detectives, playing a huge new role in spotting breathing issues in kids. Third, these new treatments are incredibly precise, targeted to a child's unique facial structure and their stage of growth. And finally, none of this works in a vacuum. The best outcomes happen when your orthodontist, your pediatrician, and sleep specialists are all on the same team. And all of this leaves us with one last, really important question that you can take with you. Now that we know about this incredible link between teeth, jaws, and breathing, is your child's orthodontist looking at more than just their teeth? It's definitely a conversation worth having. Thanks for joining us.